Hey, it's your guy Tyrrell back with the InnerViews. In today's video, we're going to briefly analyze the key tactical theme in Arsenal's 2-1 North London derby win over Spurs. When we break down the game and we do look at the board, what we end up seeing is that both sides did start the game in a 4-2-3-1. And when you highlight Spurs' attacking quartet, you can identify the speed in behind Harry Kane and Gareth Bale, Lucas Moura, and Son. So what we expected from Spurs here was to drop off deeper into two banks of four, invite Arsenal to push higher up the pitch, specifically with their fullbacks, and then have that attacking three breaking in behind Kane, who would look to drag out the center backs. And although this game was about Arsenal breaking down Mourinho's setup, they did a very good job in pressing and dropping off deeper and maintaining a compact shape. When they looked to press higher up the pitch, you would see Odegaard helping Lacazette step towards the center backs, and that's where you would expect Xhaka and Thomas Partey to step to Højbjerg and Ndombele. If Thomas or Xhaka couldn't step forward to apply pressure to one of the central midfielders, then you would see Odegaard blocking off the passing lane into Højbjerg or Ndombele to ensure that the center backs couldn't play the ball into their feet. For example, there was a time in the second half where Odegaard stepped towards Alderweireld and he forced the ball towards Reguilon, which did pull out Saka, and that's where you ended up seeing Odegaard dropping off to close down Højbjerg once the Spurs left back got on the ball. If Højbjerg looked to drop off deeper to split the center backs to create a three-man backline, what you would see is that Xhaka would step forward to close him down. And if Arsenal looked to drop off deeper, you would see Lacazette and Odegaard blocking off the passing lanes into Ndombele and Højbjerg, and Arsenal would become more of a 4-4-2. For instance, there was a time where you had Lacazette and Odegaard sitting between Højbjerg, with Odegaard shifting out to Ndombele when he was on the ball. So ultimately, Arsenal's pressing was simple and effective, and it disrupted Spurs from gaining a rhythm in this game. When you break down how Arsenal were able to create chances, first you have to assess Mourinho's overall approach. They had Lucas Moura sitting on Thomas Partey, and Ndombele was tracking the movement of Odegaard. He often looked to receive the ball just in behind Son when Cedric did receive the ball. But when Odegaard shifted into that zone, Ndombele was tight on him initially, and you would see Saka in a narrow position just ahead of Reguilon to drag him into that area. That creates space for Cedric to make runs in behind, and we often saw Thomas Partey shifting the ball out to Cedric as he was able to make forward runs beyond Son, and then the substitute Lamela down that right-hand side. There were times where you could see Thomas Partey shifting to the right of David Luiz to get on the ball, and that would encourage Cedric to push forward. But for the most part, you would see Xhaka dropping off towards the left-hand side as Thomas Partey held the center of the pitch, and that would encourage Tierney to push forward. And ultimately, it was down Arsenal's left-hand side where they were able to cause Spurs several problems. The issue that they encountered was Bale's narrow positioning, because with Xhaka dropping off into that inside left position, he was able to pull out Bale, or sometimes Bale wouldn't even look to step towards him. So he was able to slide balls out towards Tierney, that would pull out Doherty, and then you would see Smith Rowe looking to make runs in behind the right back. Smith Rowe's initial positioning was ahead of Doherty, so that would create the 2v1, and the only time when Spurs were able to stop this threat was when we saw Højbjerg shifting across to close him down when he made those runs in behind. But what ended up happening was that when Ndombele was shifted out towards that side of the pitch, he wasn't tracking the runs of Smith Rowe, and they were able to consistently play balls out to Smith Rowe behind Doherty when he was pushed out of position. Or there were times where you had Smith Rowe dropping off deeper, and they were looking to play balls in behind the right back for Tierney to make runs in behind. Or Tierney would drop off deeper, and it would be Smith Rowe shifting in towards the left touchline to make runs into that gap of space behind Doherty and Gareth Bale. Up front, Lacazette would be occupying the center backs, but there were times where he would drop off deeper into that gap of space between Ndombele and Højbjerg to ensure that they would have to hold central positions. And in regards to Odegaard, if he wasn't shifting into space just in behind Son or Lamela, he was looking to pick up the ball in those deeper positions ahead of the midfield bank to carry the ball towards goal. Here you could see Xhaka receiving the ball in the halfway circle ahead of Lamela, and he slides it across a narrow Bale Bale for Tierney with Smith Rowe ahead of Doherty in acres of space as Ndombele begins to shift over late. When Tierney receives Xhaka's pass, he pulls out Doherty and you could see Smith Rowe darting into the space behind the right back with Ndombele fail to track the run. Smith Rowe carries the ball into left half space and cuts across to recovering Ndombele due to the space created by Tierney's forward run that dragged Højbjerg towards the byline, and he opted to pull the ball back towards the edge of the box for Thomas Partey rather than playing in Lacazette or Saka, who were occupying Alderweireld and Reguilón. Shortly after that, we could see an unmarked Xhaka in the halfway circle, sliding the ball across Bale for Tierney, while Smith Rowe was also unmarked ahead of Doherty. If we look to another example, it's an unmarked Xhaka in the halfway circle, sliding the ball across Bale for Tierney, while Smith Rowe was also unmarked ahead of Doherty due to the positioning of Lacazette that forced Ndombele to hold his position as the Arsenal striker dropped off the Spurs center backs. Again, Tierney slides the ball across the right back for Smith Rowe, making a run into the left channel, with Ndombele reacting late to his movement. However, from that position towards the byline, Smith Rowe's low ball was cleared at the near post by Sanchez. Here you could see Xhaka dropping off the ball to Tierney, with Lacazette dropping towards Ndombele to create a 4v3 overload down the left, and there was no pressure on the Arsenal left back, Xhaka, or Smith Rowe's run into space behind Doherty. As you can see here, Smith Rowe receives Tierney's pass that split Ndombele and Doherty to place the Arsenal youngster in left half space, and Smith Rowe carried the ball towards the byline and his pullback was dummied by Lacazette, which took out Højbjerg and Alderweireld to fall to Cedric at the edge of the box ahead of Lucas, but he fired his effort off the post from this position. And if we highlight the build-up to Arsenal's equalizer, it's Thomas Partey sliding the ball across Bale for Smith Rowe in a pocket of space ahead of Doherty, and you could see Tierney making a forward run down the touchline beyond Bale. Smith Rowe carries the ball forward before sliding it to Tierney, with Doherty shifting over for cover, and Tierney ends up beating the right back in a 1v1 to place the ball onto his left foot, and his delivery bypassed Ndombele, tracking Smith Rowe for an unmarked Odegaard, who should have been picked up by Højbjerg, and the Dane equalized from this position. The other threat that Arsenal posed was deep diagonal switches from the halfway circle out towards the left channel. What we end up seeing here is Gabriel clipping a diagonal ball out to an unmarked Tierney on the left touchline as Xhaka dragged Bale towards the halfway circle, and Smith Rowe was occupying Doherty. When Tierney receives the ball, he carries it central to drag the right back out of position, and he ends up sliding the ball out to Smith Rowe towards the left touchline, which forced Højbjerg to shift towards that zone. In this 1v1 position, you're expecting Smith Rowe to slide the ball across Højbjerg for Lacazette's run across Sanchez. However, Smith Rowe carries the ball towards the byline, and he pulled it across Sanchez to place Lacazette in this position ahead of the 6-yard box, but the Arsenal striker scuffed his effort wide of the net. Now if we look to one final example, here you could see an unmarked Thomas Partey in the halfway circle, locating Smith Rowe in acres of space towards the left touchline, as Bale was caught narrow ahead of Tierney, and Saka made a forward run across Doherty. Smith Rowe ends up receiving the ball and splitting Bale and Doherty for Saka shifting into the left half space ahead of Sanchez, and you could see the Spurs midfield duo focused on the ball opposed to Odegaard. Saka lays the ball off to Smith Rowe running beyond Doherty and Bale, and he picks out an unmarked Odegaard as Lacazette occupied Reguilón and Alderweireld, but Smith Rowe's clipped ball for Odegaard was slightly overhit, and his knotted effort flew wide of the net. In regards to the second half, we didn't see any major tactical shifts from either manager. Pepe did come on for Saka, and he did adopt more wider positions with Cedric deeper, and at times we did see Cedric make some underlapping runs. But in regards to Spurs, they did a better job of containing that Arsenal threat due to Mourinho's substitutions. He took off Bale for Sissoko and pushed Sissoko to a central position, and then out in the wider areas we saw Lucas Moura and Lamela dealing with the threat of the Arsenal fullbacks, and Ndombele stepping towards the deepest lying Arsenal midfielder. However, when you look at that overall setup, it does leave Kane quite isolated, and Mourinho did look to bring on Dele Alli to have an additional attacking threat, but following that change, it was Arsenal's high press that's remained the same that led to the build-up for their second goal. And while Arsenal did encounter a nervy final 10 minutes, their left-sided overloads and their overall pressing dominated this game and helped Arteta win the tactical battle. Hi, everybody. Thanks for watching and subscribe here for your latest tactical analysis and daily commentary on the Interview show. And if that wasn't enough, don't forget you could find more organic, unfiltered soccer/football analysis on the Interviews podcast, the best soccer/football podcast in the world, available on iTunes, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Spreaker, and any Android apps on your Android devices.